we are asked to lead in corporate or in businesses, we think that there was some other stuff I need to go to Harvard to study, or some other things that I need to go to Juakali and get combat to study. You have those things that are innate in us. And I think today I want to touch about what stops us from then exploiting that between ourselves. And I want to use myself as an example. So I hope that makes sense. And I think also the other important thing about leadership is we are called to leadership so that we can influence bigger outcome, bigger than ourselves. And therefore, you cannot do alone. I mean, I heard guys saying, okay, I have so many employees, I'm unleashing my business ideas to other people, and I'm comfortable. And Mother Teresa said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone in the water, and it will cause many ripples. And therefore, the change gets to happen. And we all know what Mother Teresa ended up achieving. So, leadership. What are you charged with when you're asked to be a leader? And this applies whether it's your own business, your own family, or your own self. Because sometimes we also forget we need to lead ourselves, even leading self. So what's your goal in life as a person? What's a goal in life within your business? What's a goal in life when you're an employee? What's a goal in life, whether you're a fashion designer, whether you're a cameraman there, whether you're a church leader, whether you're the pastor? Everybody must decide what goal that they are going for. Otherwise, they will shoot blind in any direction and hope to hit something. And then you must organize yourself towards that goal. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a president, whether you're Hitler, whoever you are. And then you have to initiate action. So if you dream and dream, but you're not acting. So I liked Kabuki saying, I decided to come to Kenya and I did X. So she initiated action even when she got very many bad lemons or very many bad pineapples to make juice. But you initiated actions in terms of trying to do that. Then there's a coordinating element to all these things. And there's a direction towards these things. But there is a motivation towards this. How do you get people behind you to do all that you want? Even yourself, how do you motivate yourself to get out of bed? We all know sometimes it's very hard, very hard. So, but you have to keep motivating yourselves to do this. Okay, now here comes a challenge for women. Let me talk to the women challenge first. We were always told, or culturally the way we've been brought up, is leadership is for other people. But if you look back, I want somebody to, I know all of us have grandmothers. Can you remember your grandmother and the relationship they have with their father, with your father? Who makes your father squirm? Who walks into a room and everybody shuts up? It's your grandmother. And we've all seen this. Why? Is it because she's aged? It's not because of age. It's because she has been the leader all along. Yes. And by the way, they always say, we are not going to make a decision before we consult. Even some homes, I know when you go to visit even our parents and you don't find your mother there, you are told, by the way, when you're walienda. So we all know these stories. And I think it's an admission that the leadership role in all our societies has always been women. When we come to corporate, we set businesses, we come to the political, whatever space, we forget that. And I think it is because it was associated with, I will have to be a leader, so I have to be tough, you know? I'm tough. I have to talk the loudest. I have to shout. I even have to walk in a certain way. You know, have to walk, dress in certain ways, be in certain places that, unfortunately, women, we are not able to. And therefore, that affects our self-esteem, our confidence, and our courage. But however, life is changing, and we are starting to see that the great leaders, you tell me of a great leader you know, whether it's a man or a woman, they have very high EQ. And even in corporates are starting to realize that it's not just how you look, whether you talk nicely, whether you're charismatic, and whether you're always the first one to say, I can do it. You know, like men are always, I'm the first volunteer, and if you need to score 10, they want to say, I can score 12. Well, the lady is first of all thinking for 10 years before they say, I can do 2. So, but corporates, certainly, they put mechanisms in place to make sure that they are unleashing that potential from women, because they believe in these other skills, EQ, the soft skills, empathy, compassion, communication, and not leaving dead bodies while they do stuff. because you're compassionate. We all know sometimes, and I'm not really being anti-men, is that sometimes leadership has been about how many dead bodies do you leave along the process or along the way, which talks about your compassion, your empathy, and the way you're communicating or around, and confidence as well. So that is starting. So in corporate, especially in the very progressive corporates, women are lucky. They are starting to get noticed, and they are starting to get empowered or supported to unleash their potential. Like the business I work in is very pro-women. Not that we don't want the men, but whether it's maternity leave, now we have maternity leave for 6 months, so you make sure that you're not really thrown out. It's also good in terms of mentoring you, having somebody to hold your hand, and also giving you the necessary skills. And then I think the other thing that women are trying to do a lot is I think we are talking more to each other. So we are not, there used to be a long thing, which I think somebody said this, that women don't support each other. I also come from that school. That's absolute nonsense. I have had great support from women, and I hope I do support women. I think that's a fad, and sort of some of those things, stereotyping, which is a bias. And by the way, I forgot to say Happy International Women's Week. And mine is, I choose to stop bias. I choose to stop bias against women. So and then I think the other thing is to do with self as women. Because of this culture, we were not brought up with the confidence, the requisite confidence or attitude that we can win. And I like, I read a lot on Ralph Waldo Emerson and his quotes. And he says to many of us, we actually don't live the dreams because we are living our own fears. And I think that we had a lot of fears from the entrepreneurs here, and I guess there's a lot more. And as they talked, I could feel them about fears, because we all have fears. So what can we do to change this thing? I think the first thing is, let's write the goal. And I always say first things first. I think the first thing in anyone's life is to make sure that you have the real technical, or you have the knowledge. Because I don't think you're going to be anything with a big, audacious goal if you do not have what it takes to do that. Whether it's going to school properly, whether it's learning by experience, even getting that job in corporate where you practice what you wanted, or having somebody to hold you. So a long time ago, I think I was lucky. I think when I was growing up, I managed to go to school, did well in school, because I probably feared my mother a lot, because she could hit you with anything. You know how we are. So you want to be a nice girl. And I always say it's luck, because I think we were all brought up well. You were taken to church, so your value started that probably when you were very young, your grandmother coming to tell you, checking how many times you go to school, how many times you pray your rosary and stuff like that. You can tell I'm a Catholic. So, and I think those values start to work with you from very, very, very early. So I managed to go through school effortlessly and without being chucked or being in trouble. And voila, I found myself in university. And I did a degree. I wanted to be a doctor, but a cousin of mine who was a doctor told me, are you sure the first thing you're going to do is to get a dead body, and you're going to stay with it for about a month or 2 months while you study anatomy, and are you made up for that? So you can imagine you're young and you're going to be slitting, from the head, to understand the anatomy. So I said that was not my beat. So I did food science and technology, and I really can't remember why I chose that. But I think I chose that because I could see I could get a good grade, and I don't want to do medicine. And they also told me, if you do pharmacy, you'll be a glorified technician. So there were very few choices that I was left with. But now you figured I was doing science. Not for any reason, but remember those days, if you're sharp, you go and you do science. So that's what I did, because my life was just going on. But if I look back, the values I have today of working hard, of even leadership, being captain in school, being a prefect, is what has helped me. If I look back, I don't think I've learned a lot as I've grown up. So the question is, what did you do that time that was of leadership, but as you've grown old, you've forgotten? And I think somebody here said, it's actually those things. When you used to be in charge in your own family, when you used to be in charge of anything that you got, we kind of forget. So then I went to school. By the time I left college, of course, I had to be partner, and I didn't take very long before I got married, worked a bit, And then the hard decisions came. I needed to start a family. So I just resigned. And you can imagine how many messages and delegations that were sent to me. They were sent to me and said, are you mad? You have a nice job. You think a man is going to take care of you and give you, well, anyway, he did. And that's, he's still there, he's still doing it. And I think, like Pastor, you say that's the best decision I made. Because anybody who came to me with a delegation, they were saying, if you leave and you come back, you never catch up with them. Yeah. And then they would say, and then you might struggle and you might not find another job, blah, blah, blah. But I just decided to do it. And I'm glad I did. That was courage. So the other thing I've learned, as a woman, you have to have courage. Because I took a risk. Courage and taking risks. I really did take a risk because I could have been kicked out. Obviously, I had to behave and make sure that I'm not kicked out because I was kind of vulnerable. I think the other thing that personally I did was, during that time also you're bringing kids, is also to try and keep improving yourself. So I've learned, be self-aware, keep learning all the time because you don't know. I think going to Gekomba to learn about fruits, it's important. But how many of us always say, let me learn? We take being vulnerable, to say even I do not know, as a risk to self. Even in employment, very few people agree, I actually don't know how to do things. Can you show me? We only want to say it within our little circles. Yeah, but I think just spread, you'll be surprised. A lot of people want to help you, and they can. Or they'll say something, not even knowing that they're helping you, but something here, oh, I heard that was very, very good. So then I came back to Kenya, so lived in the US for 4.5 years. It was not my cup of tea, sorry. It was nice, lovely, lovely, and we were in a nice place. We were in California, but I think I felt that I couldn't self-actualize there, so we came back. And I started afresh. I came back and started entry-level work. So again, I decided I'm going to work, but I'm humble to start from. Remember now, you're talking about 8 years later, or 9, or thereabout, but my kids were big, so that was good. And then after that, I got consumed in corporate life. But coming to corporate life, I think the other lesson as women I would share is the power of mentorship. So I've been lucky, I've gotten very good mentors in my way. And in the business, I'm really grateful. I just met somebody who told me that they worked in the same organization as I did, Cadbury's, many years ago. So when I joined Cadbury, they were very good in providing you a mentor. So I got a mentor, I got a coach, but more importantly, you also have to show you have to come to the party. You have to do your part. So never forget, nobody owes you. Nobody owes you. You have to come and do your part. And then the shock for me when I was in Cadbury was being thrown in the deep end. I had ladies here talk about throwing themselves in the deep end in terms of entrepreneurship. I was thrown in the deep end I had a nice brand marketing manager's job, which is nice. It's nice and cool, it's sexy. You tend to meet people who are smart like this room. Yeah. Then I was thrown to work in the factory, where I had to deal with unions and no disrespect to anybody, unions were very, very tough those days. The guys, I remember one particular guy, God bless his so-called Okoth Korombo, he was so tall, so he was a big guy. And whenever he wanted something to the union, he would just come walking and say, young lady, those very condescending and really belittling conversations. But you just have to stand and look up and say, yes, sir. And then that time you're shaking, you're really shaking. But that's when I got my biggest growth, because I realized you can actually stand up, so long as you're right, you can stand up across anybody and you don't have to abuse them. And for me, that was an epitome of a big, real challenge. You have 250 people working for you, they are all unionized, they are all males, and they're all plus 50. And you're just a small 30-something, probably just shy of 30, you know what I mean? I was quite young actually, I was just around 30. And you're wondering, first of all, the language, you need to be very careful about the language. Kiswahili, of course, you have no clue how to speak in Kiswahili. Remember, we all remember Kiswahili. Even now, not many of us I still can't speak the language. I can survive but not speak, so just the courage. And the question sometimes I look is that, where does that courage come from? I think it comes from inner self. You have to talk to yourself, but I'm meeting you, you're taller than me, You can floor me, you can argue better than me, but I am going to have that resolve. And the question is, how often do we do that? There's sometimes you can't sleep because you have a very big challenge in front of you, even with many years of experience, but you have to keep talking to yourself. You have to keep, it's an inner voice. Pastor would tell me it's prayer. But it's a combination of all those things. It's prayer, it's kind of like self-counsel, but at the same time, you do know where you need to go. So that was my growth moment. And I always tell people, I was asked to do that. I was very unhappy. But in retrospect, that's the best thing that I ever knew how to lead people, get people to where I want them to be. I had to change my language. I had to change the way I organize myself. I had to change the way I influence, which I guess is all what leadership is. So question, what is your moment of, I call it your tremor moment. So sometimes we get tremors by accident. Sometimes people force themselves to get into a tremor. But I think you have to organize a tremor moment for you, because I think it shakes you upside down. And after that, you get some confidence that you have no idea where this comes from. So as you go on, anything comes here, you say, okay, so let's sit, let's look at it, rather than running away and crying. And by the way, you can cry, running away and doing that stuff. Then after that, I think by the time I was going there, after conversations with my mentors and coaches in the organization, I knew where they were giving me that tremor moment. So I played along, and the rest is history. So I became CEO a few years after that. When I look back, I probably was very sad. I don't feel it, but when I was talking to some people, some other people, someone said, but you were very young. I said, yes, because I was CEO at 38. So that was good at the time of a multinational. So what are the things that helped me? I think it's people believing in you, getting a mentor, having your own goals, and then therefore plugging what you need to do. Because you have to be very deliberate. It doesn't come by chance. That's what it did not come by chance. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but it doesn't come by chance. Because you have to plan for it. You have to look for people to join you on the journey. You have to keep planning, and you have to keep having your tremor moments, and you have to have some few people who are holding your hands all the time. And I think we are not good at that. Sometimes when we have a problem, we do run, hide in our houses. I think somebody here was saying, until we cook it, we cook it. When we think it's, then we come out to the world. I think we need to have 20% have an idea. Let me look for a lot of people so this can happen. So to cut the long story short, so that value system, especially that part of my life between family and maybe the later, maybe another 6 years is when I got my real growth. And I keep exploiting that fundamental growth till now. However, what I learned after that is not to start the repo, the Mother Teresa thing. So get people like Yvonne next to you. Really hire good people to work for you. Get mentored by young people. I know people talk about mentorship. Right now, I don't have a mentor. What I get mentored is every occasion. So I was sitting here. I have written several notes. She's sure I was writing notes. I've been mentored several times here, especially how to start a business. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a corporate person. And I heard you guys start when you're in just a few hours, 3. Not, so you get met just 3 hours of your 24. No, not very many, not very many. So my passion being growing about people, that's where it also comes from, because I've discovered any promotion I've gotten, anything I've done successful in my life, it's what I have delegated. Is what I've delegated to somebody. So, and I think as a leadership, you think about qualities of a leadership, and I'm not in no way saying that I'm perfect. It is those qualities of, are you self-aware of what you can do and what you cannot do? And we are human beings. So then how do you bring other people who know better what to do, of what you'd like to do, and then empower them? So once you get the big sort of a strategy up here, and you get the pillars that are going to help you deliver that, then allocate all those pillars to people who are better than you all the time. Sometimes you get threatened not to bring anybody who is better than you. But we should never do that. We should never do that. So the other thing is communication. I think one of you said being on the ground. I'm very open. If you want to call me even at midnight, whatever rank you are, just call me if you have a problem, and let's do it. So being open to listening, being open to be corrected. These guys, they're very rude to me. Sometimes they can tell me, that sounds silly, and it's okay, they won't die, they won't get fired. So that doesn't sound right. They use such kind of language on me, and it's okay. It's because, and it's all right, because I'm willing to hear it is not silly, because at the end of the day, it is not working towards what we need to do. So, and being open to them to tell you off and not holding it against them for the rest of their lives. So I hope they do feel that, or they pretend. Yeah, I think my other lesson is you have to keep the other thing I've started recently is make sure that the team building, there is no any person in any organization or in life or even within family who knows what needs to be done. So I'm very passionate of late of working through cross-functional teams. So in our business, we work through cross-functional teams. First of all, it kills silos. Once it kills silos, then you're able to bring the best of everybody towards a certain agenda. And what we've discovered, it really, really drives performance. It then drives inclusivity. Nobody feels like they're being excluded within the organization. And YV can attest to that. They tend to be very tough meetings if on the cross-functional teams, but they help. They've also made us discover who the great leaders are within the organization, because sometimes in hierarchies, and I think it's Kabuki was saying, that house girl can tell you a lot of things that you do not know. So when these guys come, every Monday morning, they come and tell us what they need to do, a certain, let's say a certain challenge that we have in the business, and we empower them in resources and in decision making. And we've discovered the stars are actually the ones that you do not see. So we've learned leaders is also a way of mentoring the next leader, the next generation of leaders, but they also get access to leadership for coaching and even for motivation, because you feel very motivated if it's on Monday morning, you're going to see your MD or you're going to see your director, and then hopefully that they practice that. So then you get this movement that probably has helped us get over COVID. I think a lot of you talked about COVID, which has been a very trying time for everybody. Yeah, so I finished with telling you the story of my first meeting with my union guy. Later we were to become friends. Yeah, no, we were to become friends because I think you learn how to talk, and then they become even your advice on how to do. So you want to do a very tough thing. So sometimes adversaries become your. So what I've also learned, bring anybody who is on your adversary to your side. And sometimes they didn't mean to be an adversary. They just didn't even know what you were about. Neither did you understand what they were about. But I found that people want the same thing. The directions and the routes may be different. But so let's just, and it's tough. Because sometimes you go to bed, you're so annoyed with somebody. Because we are human beings. And you don't even want to see them. But if you just breathe in, that's what I've learned. Just breathe in and then start afresh. Maybe it might work. Now, coming back to women. So a lot of the things, and I think this being Women's Week, we talk about the glass ceiling. And one of the questions I wanted to ask you guys is, what is a glass ceiling? Okay, first of all, is there a glass ceiling? Is there a glass ceiling? Miss Moderator. She says there isn't. Is there a glass ceiling? People are not sure. So I also checked out what is a glass ceiling. And a glass ceiling is described as an identified, undefined, and acknowledged impediment that stops women from accessing the levels of leadership. So it's unacknowledged, is imagined. So actually, you're right. I don't think there is a glass ceiling. There are people who still are not. I can see some guys they are not believing, but there is no glass ceiling. And the thing is that there is no glass ceiling. I believe there is no glass ceiling. The minute you believe there is a glass ceiling, you're being put down. So please, it's an imaginary thing. So just keep walking upwards. There is no, and I think it's driven because there are so many barriers, and the barriers are, I think women, unlike men, we do not spend time improving ourselves. Think about, even for those of us who are married, how many, even reading in the houses, if you think about the proportionate time you spend reading versus your partner, because there you're observing, isn't it? I'm sure you'll be reading much less. If you think about the amount of time you spend networking and getting to know people, we probably do 25% and they do 130%. The other one is of course biases. Think about when you went for an interview. Even I had very interesting conversations about financing women businesses. Just think, when did you last go try to get a loan from a bank? And how did you walk into that bank? Somebody is smiling. You walk in, can I see the cashier? I don't want to see the manager. I want to talk to the cashier first before I go to the real manager. Yeah? So you're already underplaying yourself before you go and say, I have this fantastic business idea. Now, what would a man do? A man will make, if they want to go to Absa, they'll look for Jeremy Awori, where he plays golf, where he hangs out, and he'll go and say, Jeremy, I wanted to have a conversation, while he went to the cashier in a very small branch in your neighborhood. Yeah? I'll tell you, I interview a lot of people, and I can tell you how interviews work. So when you have a position and you advertise, first of all, 70% of the applicants, or even 80, they will be men, and the rest will be women. Now, what we are doing in our business is to make sure before anybody gets interviewed to be 50-50, we are forcing to get a 50-50 representation at the interview stage. When you say you give the guys a raw profile, everybody a raw profile, the guy will come and say, I did that. So we'll be telling him 130%, this job I'll hit the ground running. In fact, after 1 year, I want to know what is the next promotion that you're going to give me. If a lady, whoever comes in, they say, yeah, you know, I've done that. Is there training for me to prepare me to get that job that I'm interviewing for? And it's very sad. So I think when people are talking about mentoring, let's first of all say, when we go for those, we have low confidence. We're not even researching what the role is, and we are not coming that we can do. And when you scratch the surface, actually that person who is shy can even do it much better. So I think there is a culture, and there is also, maybe it's been drummed on us that we are different. And therefore, we have to move to stop the bias. If we don't move, I'm sorry, we're in trouble. So next time, business entrepreneurs, you go for loans, start with Jeremy. Or if you can't get Jeremy, start with all these advisors here. And I'm picking on Jeremy because he's my friend. I think start with somebody who can prepare you on what to do. Yeah. And seriously, the skills in corporate, in business, even in political leadership, that are very high EQ now, that are required to move the country forward, to move corporates forward, to move businesses forward, are what women naturally have. And that's what I call the empathy, the social skills, just general EQ. We tend to be higher on the EQ scale than the guys, but we are not exploiting that. We're also not very good at women networks, and that's why I think this forum is fantastic. Because if you think about the men networks, there are so many. Some written down, some not written down. But women, we have very, very little, so we need to I think we need to start getting our acts together. Now, I think the other thing is first things first. You know, women, we lead from the heart. Actually, we do our things from the heart. So I think we really need to protect our hearts. And I think you all understand what I mean. Because when our hearts are not in a good place, we actually can't even perform even in the office, because we are not able to separate ourselves. So the way you see a woman in the office is probably you're seeing the total self. If a man is in the office, there could be compartments. How they are at home, how they are in the golf course, how they are off with their buddies, and many other places that they go. So it's what I call first things first. Take care of yourself. Make sure that you're solid. and have a good support system. I always say everybody needs a cheerleading squad. Your cheerleading squad could be your church, your prayer mates, your sisters, your siblings, even your family, if you're lucky, your husband, whatever works for you, or your colleagues. You must have a cheering squad. Guys who keep telling you, come on, guys you go and cry on if you have to, and guys you keep sharing things with. So getting back to my old Okoth Korombo days, so every time I'm going for an interview or every time I eye a certain position, because you have to eye it before you get it, isn't it? It doesn't come, nobody holds your hand. We are clear? I think of my Okoth Korombo moment. So I say I'm going to be so internally ready, and I'm going to handle this. But then you prepare. You have to prepare, and then you get to the self, and then you go for it. And I'll give you a very interesting example that happened the other day. One day I was just walking around town. Actually, no, I was driving somewhere, and somebody calls me, somebody's thinking about doing this for you. I said, no, it's okay, I'm ready to support. The next thing I saw was a gazette notice that I'm reading the COVID fund. And I'm like, what? How do I even start doing something like that? And I almost like went, gosh, my shoulders just... And then I got to my Okoth Korombo moment. Okay, Kwani, what does it take? It's okay, let's go and deal with. And then I looked at the board members, and these guys, we kept laughing. They can tell you the jokes they made. I had a great board. I was given Michael Joseph, James Mwangi, Jeremy Awori, that's why I'm enjoying him, Mr. Matiang'i himself, and Governor Oparanya were in the board. And I have to go and sit my small self to go in a board meeting, manage that board meeting, and start giving direction. So how intimidating is that? It's very, very intimidating, but I can tell you that Okoth Korombo moment, just sitting in where I come in French, tunasema kujijaza, yeah, in French language. So unajijaza, even something you have got no idea what you're going to do. So you start by Niko na nitaenda, and then after you get in there and you keep quiet and you tell the guys, okay, we are here, we have this task, what are we going to do? Okay, let's start. And from there it just starts flowing. But I could have chosen to cry or refuse or go there and throw tantrums. Just chill. And if I look back at what helped me that moment was that particular day when I had a tremor moment. That tremor moment, I'm calling a Okoth Korombo moment, that showed me you can deal with, if at 30 years I could deal with those 50, and I'm saying I'm not being derogatory, those guys who are so mature, unionized. And you know how the unions used to be, still are a bit. They used to be much worse. So I guess my personal life, if I'm sharing with you, is that just determine what gives you that courage. I think one is you have to experience it, by the way. Something has to shake you. You have to be ready for it, but you also have to have a cheering squad that if all fails, you're going to close your files and walk there and you'll be fine, isn't it? Because you find your cheering moments, your cheerleaders, and then you I don't know, you have whatever that poison that you take. Whether it's tea or coffee or whatever it is, and then the following day or within time, you come back and face the world. And particularly for women, we must have that, yeah. And we find it in different places. Yeah, but yeah, so then after that, it's me, I'm humble self, leading EABL, but I must say the reason I'm doing that, I have 1,500 superstars who I stand on. So it's not me, yeah. It's not about me. And I think the other thing I learned here, I don't think we recognize them enough. I like the way you recognize from your beautiful dressmaker, which is something that I learned today. Yes, so I think it's very good. And then, is my journey over? No. I'm still trying to think of what is going to move me from being successful to significance. So I'll be thinking about those 3 hours per day. What is that I can take to being in the next to be significance? And I do urge women to look for that significant bit. Because women, we are also slightly different from men. We have so much care. We like when we change the world, and we change the world within our little communities. So I don't think it's a big, audacious thing, because it gives us comfort. Even paying school fees for one child, it helps. I chair an NGO where, and I'll give you this story, where we take care of girls, and we started in very small. We started in Kilungu's, Precious Blood, and here in Nairobi, and now we're in 5 schools. And we take very difficult girls who have passed, but they can't get to high school. And we get money from individuals. And each year we have more than 100 kids, and it's from individuals. That's the best board meeting I go to, because of the stories you hear. And what you see, what you're contributing is so little. It's either your time, or about, I don't know, at most 120 shillings a year. But when you see those guys, recently we had, I think 2 years ago, we have somebody in Berkeley. We almost cried that day. You can imagine somebody who came from no father, abused by everybody around them, and now they're doing law in Berkeley, California. It's just one of those sort of moments. And I think women, we are much better at seeing those things, small little things. They're not even big. Yeah. So if anybody has an idea of how they can help me move from success to significance, I'm willing to listen. But that's my next sort of the next 18-month thing, to try and get to that. So I want to stop here and get a few questions. But before I start, and even the Bible talks about leadership, and I thought I'm next to the pastor, so I need to look and have a Bible quote. And a Bible quote. So I was sitting next to the pastor. I have to be inspired and learn something today. Yeah, so not looking, so this is Philippians 2:4. Not looking at your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. Yeah? I think that's what we should try to do. And then I even got another one. I got even a second one. Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it, and in particular, women. Yeah? Yeah, thank you. So can I take a few questions? Yeah.
Wow. Jane, thank you so much for those inspiring words. The second Bible verse that you read out, I believe our speaker yesterday closed on the same. Said differently, but I think we're all flowing here. But thank you so much. There are lots of questions coming through for you.
Okay.
So I will start with the first one. And Wangeshi Washira says, there's a lot of positive conversation on being a business owner or entrepreneur. So much so, maybe the art of entrepreneurship within a corporate setting is underrated. How does one foster intrapreneurship in a corporate setting, and how can we start promoting it more?
I want to answer that with COVID effects from an EABL perspective. I think we underestimate that there's a lot of entrepreneurship that goes on in corporate. I think we just need to stop and think. So just figure out, we are all working for breweries, and same time this year, we get all our bars shut. And we have to stay employed. It's pandemic. I mean, there's nothing we can do. So first question, how do we keep ourselves employed? How do we deliver our good brands to people who choose to take them? So it took a lot of entrepreneurship, and I've never seen an organization work so well together, teamwork. It became very enterprising. There are some brands that within 6 weeks were from concept to the shop. That's being enterprising, but we don't call it that. So again, I challenge people, if let's say you're even coming from corporate, there's so many things that you do from an entrepreneurship perspective. And I also put it to you that if even in an interview you don't look enterprising, you probably will not get the job. It probably is not called that. It's called, are you adaptable? Do you listen? Do you learn? Yeah? Because what is entrepreneurship? I go to a different place. I have a challenge that is facing me, but I'm so enterprising and I'm so creative at dealing with it. That's what entrepreneurship is, isn't it? Yeah. I think I should have checked what entrepreneurship is defined as, but I suspect it's defined as being creative, being adaptable, being flexible and agile to deal with a certain issue that you didn't know that was going to hit you. So we've all seen ourselves in the country and globally, how we've dealt even with our own lives from dealing with the pandemic. I don't think anybody here can hold hand on heart that they've not changed the way they used to view life. We are very different. So therefore, we've been very entrepreneurial in how we are dealing with it. Yeah.
Okay. And another question here. What is the path to finding balance as a woman in senior management and C-suite? How do you remain grounded, especially as C-suite can be very lonely, especially for women? Finally, how do you bring your femininity and womanhood into the boardroom?
Yes, so the first thing I would say is, I've never seen myself as a woman, by the way. So I don't know whether that shocks you, because the minute you start saying I'm a woman, you're actually starting to reduce your own confidence. I'm a leader in a corporate setting. That's what I am. Are there some values and some strengths that I have as a woman that come naturally into what I do? Of course there are. And I have to exploit that. Just like in anything that you do, you have to use your spikes to deliver, you know, your spikes being your strengths. So that's the first thing that I do. So does the femininity come? Probably does, probably doesn't. I prefer not to pay attention to it. Just be myself. I think the other question is, how do I deal with balancing? First things first. You know, you succeed when your own value system and objectives and your organization or whatever are doing are aligned. That's obvious, I guess. So if in your life it's not first things first, then it won't work even in the corporate, because you'll be a very unhappy person. So first things first. And I guess I had no problem stopping work to be a mother. Even in my career, I don't think I've ever stopped at my child is sick, I need to attend. No. First things first. The things find you and you catch up. It's not a detriment. Yeah. And if you're in a place where it's a detriment, you probably would not flourish in that place. You probably need to make a different decision. Yeah. Have I answered?
Yes, you have.
Okay.
And
right.
now we have a question from Kabuki.
Thank you, Kaki. My question is trying to think again, maybe a little bit outside the box for micro and small and medium businesses, and how to provide market for them. Because we find like sometimes, you know, the typical market, like the supermarkets, you know, many of them have gone down that path. So we're trying to see, like, possibly with corporates, are there ways that we can facilitate opportunities and visibility for these smaller brands to grow? Like, for instance, having a monthly small exhibition within the organization to show, you know, complementary brands or something like that, that Yebel could work with, something like that. I don't have everything in my head, but just a way to show that. Thank you.
Yes, you know, that's a great question. So I'll talk on our reference our own organization, what we are trying to do. Yeah. So we've, over the last maybe 24 months, we have very ambitious 2030 society goals. And one, our inclusion and diversity, and one is actually on women. So if I go in the advertising space, we are now looking specifically, even in terms of an advert, how we bring more women into advertising. That's one. Because the world is 50-50, so I think we can no longer ignore that. We've now specifically looked for women directors in advertising. In fact, the last ad, which is fantastic or about to come out, has been directed by a woman director. We then organize that she comes and she's from South Africa, unfortunately, because Kenyans, there are not many. She's then going to hold clinics. And all those guys are going to be women entrepreneurs. That's the other thing. From a supply perspective, agencies, I think about 8-10 months ago, we reshaped the whole place and we insisted we must bring specifically women-owned agency suppliers, and we have done that. So we are being very, very, very deliberate about this. So it depends on whether our industries are complementary, but it's something we are doing intentionally And we'll do a lot more. I think, obviously, after COVID is over, we'll be probably having more exhibitions. I think, lastly, the thing you need to do is associations. And I heard you talk about KAM. It's a very good thing to have that association because they have, there is a deliberate or a platform for small and micro, medium enterprises. And I think there you can market yourselves to the large corporates. Or even you can come together and then become a very big sort of big outfits. You know, we used to have old cooperative societies. It helped. I think we need to revisit some of these things. And to give you comfort, these big chains are also hurting us. So it's not just small, medium enterprises. When they go down, they are going down with everybody, and I think something needs to be done. It's hurting more to the small people, but it is a problem for all of us. Yeah.
So there's another question here, and I think you've alluded to it a little bit as you've gone through your remarks to us this morning. But how do you stand out in a field dominated by men?
Am I a female? Mm-hmm. So and I know it's a very serious question. I think it goes back to, first of all, confidence in yourself. And I think when I was talking, I think I probably answered it. I was, we do a lot of, in my organization, personality checks and coaches as you go and as you grow, just to check what drives you. And I was having a conversation with somebody and who was analyzing this on me, and we were trying to get, where did my confidence come from? And actually, we took it back to my youth, because I'm very close to my father. So I think the affirmation, being close to my father and my parents, and just being in that ecosystem, and then sort of acquiring, you're not embarrassed for who you are, because you're confident. That confidence went all the way there. So when I say I am not a woman, I'm a human being, just like how you'd ask me, do I see myself as black? I don't. I'm sorry, and I learned that when I went to the US. I discovered I was of a different color. When actually I went to the US, and I'm like, seriously? So, but it didn't work, and I'm sure probably you also felt like that when you went to the US. It's refusing those battles to get to you, because you're a human being, and you have that confidence. And I talked about how if you've not been lucky when you're young to get it, look for a way to get that into yourself, that you're a confident person. So if I go and stand, I've given you my meeting at COVID board. I didn't go and say myself, I'm here, I'm a woman, and have all these big, because those are great big hitters, isn't it? Joshua Igara, they're all my friends, by the way, and I'll call them, I tell them I was telling them off in another meeting, in case they're here. But there was somewhere and I talked about you. Even C.S. Martin, they're big guys, isn't it? But if you sit there and you're not going, oh yeah, and when you open your mouth, you're saying something credible, they will listen to you. So prepare, prepare, prepare. It does not come by accident. Before you go to that for that loan, prepare, prepare, over prepare. And unfortunately, women were held at higher standards. And I learned that a long time ago, but I choose not to groan about it. So I'll over-prepare for everything. Talk to everybody, call a friend, do anything but over-prepare. And then don't be afraid of them. Once you are prepared and you're confident, you're not going to shut up because the room is full of guys and you don't want to talk. But just don't make sure you're not spewing nonsense. Just spew something. Spew something good. And don't cry, never ever cry in front of them. Never, ever, ever. Because what are they going to say? And never, you have to be, one of the great leadership things is self-regulation, self-motivation. You know that, you guys. So you have to regulate your emotions. You know, you cannot go and shout in a meeting, because you will never be forgiven as a woman. They'll say, shouting just like a woman. As a man can shout and even use profanity, and you're okay. Never ever make that mistake to say, oh, you are a nonsense. You'll be in so much trouble. Huh? But a guy will come to the office and tell you, gosh, you guys are so stupid, and you get away with it, isn't it? But as a woman, never, ever, ever. So I think the thing is to prepare, to prepare. It starts from learning, learning, learning. I've just graduated during COVID. I know if you didn't say that. Yeah, I just graduated, by the way. I had planned to do this course in Harvard, this thing came, and I still did it. So from August, graduated in November, and now I should be, if I was a man, probably that, it should have been in my bio, isn't it? But I'm not worried about those things. Huh? So you have to keep learning. But if it's a man, I should have said, by the way, you guys, I'm a Harvard graduate. I'm even an MGH. I was honored by the president. But we don't do those things. Yeah? So, but prepare, over-prepare, because you're being judged differently. Yeah.
So thank you so much. There are overwhelming comments about how impactful your nuggets have been to the audiences dialed in. So I believe at this point we are transitioning into another segment. So I will hand back to our MC, who will then direct us into the next
So I have one last comment. Thank you very much for having us, ladies. But I just want to leave you attitude. I think the last thing I touched on is attitude. So let's just get that attitude that we are winners. We are really, really winners. But I want to read you a quote of Oprah Winfrey, because you know she's a lady. She's the only person I could think of sharing, because she's become great from very advanced backgrounds. And she said, I have come to believe that each of us has a personal calling that is unique as a fingerprint, and that the best way to succeed is to discover what you love and then find a way to offer it to others in form of service, working hard, and also allowing the energy of the universe to lead you. Thank you very much, ladies, and all the best.
Have your seats, please. Thank you so much, Jane. I think we have gotten so many nuggets. We've learned so much. Aren't we all winners? Yes. Are you left with feeling that you're a winner today? Yes. Online, do you feel like you're a winner? I think what Jane said that really stood out for me is that leadership just doesn't start now. It's been in our lives. We just have to recognize that even as children in school, we had leadership positions. And as we grew older, we were given leadership positions. I remember my father always used to tell me that I'm the one in charge of laying the table and closing the grills at night. That was my responsibility. Kabuki is my sister, and she had her chicken farm when she was young, so she was responsible for her chicken. And I don't remember what my little sister's responsibilities were. Do you remember? But now she has huge responsibilities. So I think leadership starts from when we are young. And so just recognize and look back into your life. When did it start? What were the things I was in charge of? Because that's where courage comes from. That's when we start seeing new things emerging for ourselves. So I really got that, and it really encouraged me, because I did feel like even standing here today is because of a series of responsibilities that I had been given throughout my life. So that was an aha moment for me. So now we'll be going into our next segment, which is the award ceremony. And I just have an announcement for our Facebook and our YouTube viewers. Unfortunately, we'll have to stop the live coverage for you due to copyright regulations. We'll not be airing this session live, but you can join our Zoom conversation and we can continue from there. So that will be ending right now. Maybe we may need, oh, Jane, you're back. Thank you. Okay, so the next session is